What's up, hobby friends, and welcome back to Paint Bravely, a podcast where you can find a little bit of encouragement, discover new ways to make your hobby more fun, and most importantly, learn to paint bravely. Alright, we got some fun hobby stuff to talk about yet again. Fun every time, I swear.
Every time, every dang time.
Yeah.
I tell you what.
Yeah, we've been working on some hobby projects. We've got some not announcements, but like some stuff's going on in the YouTube world, which I think is pretty cool, and a lot of other hobby stuff. So, Brent, what have you been doing the last couple of weeks, hobby-wise? What you got going on?
I present to you a game called Novus Malum, First Encounters, and now, if I remember correctly, that means new evil, or something like that.
That sounds right.
Novus Malum, new evil, First Encounters. So this is the first game coming out from a brand new company called Enviro Games Limited, and this is the first game company I'm aware of that has kind of made their whole shtick environmentally friendly gaming.
Mm-hmm.
And so the box that I got, and there's part of what we can talk about here is that there's a trade-off to all of this stuff. So this is a company based in England, and so I did pay for it to be shipped across the Atlantic Ocean, and that's not necessarily environmentally friendly, but hey, like I paint miniatures instead of riding around on a jet ski, so that's there's a trade-off to everything. Yeah. And I paint miniatures, which are relatively small pieces of plastic compared to the plastic of the outside paneling of a jet ski.
Right.
So,
and worthwhile plastic that we're going to keep, display, not throw away.
Cherish.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's totally different.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't know if my jet ski mechanic is like an environmentally conscious dude or not.
Depends. Is it a two-stroke rider or a four-stroke rider? I don't know.
That's a very good point. Okay, so I'll start with this. Like the package that came from Britain is like a recycled paper envelope and very clearly made of recycled materials. And the box of the game came. What?
Some damage on that envelope?
Well, I ripped it open.
Well, okay. It looks like shipping damage. I don't know.
Oh, no, that was me ripping it open. Sorry. But I'm glad that I did rip it open because you could see the guts of the envelope is padded with like scraps of paper instead of, scraps of plastic.
Right.
Like it's not a bubble wrap protected envelope. It's paper lint protected envelope.
Okay, well, that's why they're protected.
Yep. Yeah. And then the box for the game, so this is it's like a skirmish miniatures game using kind of normal 30-ish millimeter scale minis. Nice. There's a force of 13 dwarves in there and 13 gnomes in there. Gnomes is spelled with a K. Gnomes, yeah. So we can probably do a whole episode on that if you want.
Killer
gnome talk. Yeah. And they are the bad guys. Yeah.
Even better.
Yeah, so we've got a whole little fantasy world built up for Novus Malum. So 3,000 years ago, there was a great evil, and they walled it off with a wall of mist, and the wall is crumbling, and now there's like weird little evil gnomes coming out of the mist, something like
and
that.
And the dwarves gotta fight them.
Yeah.
Sounds cool. I mean, let's do this.
It's a classic, total classic.
Definitely.
Yeah. So yeah, like relatively small box for 26 miniatures in there. 26 miniatures, a rule book. The tokens for I read the setting.
Okay.
I read the lore of Novus Malum. I did not read the rules of Novus Malum. Just want to be real clear on that. So there are tokens or
like status
something.
Effect type thing. I guess you didn't read it. I don't know. Is that what it
couldn't
says on
tell
the
you.
token?
I couldn't. It's more like pictures and shapes on the tokens.
Okay.
But the point is that the tokens are MDF, like laser cut circles of MDF with whatever the picture of the status effect or otherwise etched onto the token that way. And so the only plastic in the box is the plastic of the miniatures themselves. They're CO cast, and we can talk more about that in a second. But there's little circles of MDF are also the bases. So there's like 13 smaller MDF circles for the gnomes and 13 bigger ones for the dwarves. And I had never actually used an MDF base before.
Oh, okay.
And, honestly, even in their instruction book, not the instruction book, in the full-on rule book, they use plastic bases. Like they
just had them from
either GW or knockoff GW bases for the pictures in the rule book. But and obviously we have those. But I was like, okay, well, when in Rome, use MDF bases for your gnomes. Yeah. Gnome Rome. Yeah. When in Gnome. Okay.
It's not getting better.
Nope. Just leave that by the side of the road. But yeah, so we got a cute little rule book here with there's some good pictures in there. Open up to some random pages. There's art in there. There's rules.
It looks nice.
So it's a full-on skirmish game. They tell me that their book is printed with aqueous, renewable, non-plastic inks or something. I don't know.
Plant water.
Plant water, yeah, printed with pure plant water. And I actually talked with 2 of the 4 people who run this company earlier this week, and just try to get the vibe of what it is that they're doing over at Enviro Games. And I asked them like what in the current gaming industry, I phrased it what like pisses them off the most, but like what's the lowest hanging fruit, like where does optimization need to be made? And their answer was like they're trying to do everything in an iterative way. Like they're running a game company, they are trying to run it to be a profitable game company, and then kind of within that, for each of these items, they're looking, okay, how do we make our packaging? How do we make our models? How do we make this? How do we make that? And then for each category, figure out what a low impact way to fulfill that need is. And then also keep an open mind of what are some alternatives to that? Like if they can continue to iterate and go from one type of box to another type of box. Like when we were having a little chat, they were actually a little down on themselves for the stickers that were on the box. So it's like a box of recycled cardboard.
Right.
And, it's the typical light umber color of recycled cardboard. And then on top they have a sticker. Yeah. And they were like, okay, it looks good. They were like a little down on like just the technology of the sticker. Yeah. And hey, if that's what they're beating themselves up over, like they're probably doing pretty well. Right. Like if that's
like they're trying.
Yeah. And just real quick here, I'll pop open the little box. And that was something they were talking about too. It's just they wanted to make a relatively small box so that shipping cost, both in money and in like environmental cost or whatever, is relatively low. But pop it open here, and the way that they package things within the box are envelopes. So the bits for each miniature are in a little paper envelope instead of a plastic bag or something like that. And they do pop off all the minis from the sprues. Yeah. In their headquarters, I think just one of their houses. Probably. But in their little headquarters, these guys all have like full-time jobs. So four people getting together to run a game company on the side. But yeah, in their home or whatever, they pop these off the sprues because the CO cast sprues are recyclable. Yeah. And so the idea is that at least that is not going to waste. And yeah, they put them in recyclable paper envelopes to keep the gnome heads separate from the dwarf heads, And yeah, it was just kind of cool because like I've been working on the dwarves is what I've been working on recently, and yeah, the kind of you take the dwarves out of their envelope and glue them together, and then all you're left with is like a small pile of recycled paper envelopes. It's like, okay, I'm not really accumulating any trash here as I'm going through on this project, and I don't know, like in the grand scheme of things, nothing we do in this hobby causes me a lot of guilt in terms of the environmental impact.
It's
other than
small.
flying to Adepticon.
Yeah. The traveling, the shipping, all of those things. But I mean, those are going to happen regardless. Whether you're on that plane or not, it's going there.
Right. Yeah. Planes be traveling to O'Hare Airport.
Yes.
That's going to happen one way or the other. But
yeah, exactly. And those the shipping boats and planes and trucks are trucking and boating and planing regardless.
Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to remember to say is, like, I read through the rule book, and there are plenty of words like gnomes in this rule book, but the word recycle, enviro, eco, whatever, there's no Greenpeace in this book. Is all I'm trying to say. Like this is entirely a fantasy game and a fantasy rule book. And unless there were some deep allegories that I haven't taken the time to understand,
like gnomes aren't like trash goblins or something. They're not.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
The mist is smog in LA. Is that? Yeah.
Yeah, I got to do some consideration whether that's the smog in LA is breaking up and the weird gnomes coming out of the evil blasted lands.
It's entirely possible.
Yeah, maybe it's just me being dense, but on my first read through, I didn't clue into any grand allegory that's gonna propagandize its way into your head. Like it's just a fantasy game.
It's a game.
It's just a fantasy skirmish game.
People are just...
As far as I know, it's a decent fantasy skirmish game.
Right.
But it's all of the environmentally conscious stuff is in how it's fulfilled and how they get it to you, and the game itself is just a little fantasy game. So
yeah, that's cool. I mean, I assume you're not going to read the book, but if you do,
I read the lore and looked at the pictures, and there's some rules in there. There's definitely some rules in there.
Yeah.
Also, it works on a D6 system, but they did not include a D6 in the box because, like, you have D6s. Yeah, if you're buying a weird niche skirmish game for the miniatures hobby, you have dice. Yeah. You have D6.
Unless it's one of those weird ones where they do the step up system on like D14s. I don't have that. I don't have a 14, 15, 16. I don't have those.
Old DGS free blades.
As fun as it is, I don't have those dice. So yeah, I hope they're included. They're not.
No.
Yeah. Speaking of being recyclable, I have this old Necromunda box that I've been working on, and I'll talk about it a little bit more. But I was just realizing, like, you open it up, it's all styrofoam.
Sure.
Yeah. Which is pretty neat, honestly. It just kind of has like a cool feel to it that you don't get. And I imagine it's for a lot of the same reasons. It's like, that styrofoam looks brand new. Like the day it was made.
It's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Hasn't degraded a day.
Not even a little bit. No.
That'll be as good as new 10,000 years from now. That's what I like about it.
Yes, that's why I bought it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you painted any of these K-gnomes or
gnomes? No, but I'm actually almost done with 12 of the 13 dwarves.
That's pretty good.
So there's So there's 6 crossbow dwarves and there's 6 hammer and shield dwarves.
Ooh, okay.
And in a lot of ways they're pretty classic takes on them, but the sculpts look good.
Mm-hmm.
So it's Seocast, and we've talked about that before.
Mm-hmm.
It's a small scale alternative to metal is really what it's replacing.
Yeah. Although the quality is still, I mean, I'd say the actual quality of the sculpts is still up there with a lot of plastic.
Oh, yeah. No, the crispness and the amount of detail that you can get in these is pretty dang high.
Yeah.
And so the faces and actually the chainmail links on the dwarves in particular is really good.
Nice.
Like it's kind of a weird thing to say, but the pattern of the chainmail on these dwarves is kind of the most obvious thing. You're like, oh, look at that! Like the molds work.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking back to the green stuff sculpted goblins, or green stuff sculpted dwarves, like the old metal dwarves from Warhammer Fantasy. The chainmail there is somebody with a pencil tip, whatever the sculpting tool is, like poke, like doing each bit of chainmail this way. And on these, you look at it like, okay, that's clearly digitally sculpted.
Yeah.
But it seems like there's actually an interlocking ring pattern there.
Oh, okay.
In the actual texture, and it's very, very fine, very crisp. And so that part's cool. So the amount of detail that they're getting out of these Seocast sculpts, very high. I will say that cleaning them up is not so good. So they've been using, I don't know if it's 50-50 or some other mixture, but they've been using a combination of the old Seocast soft with the newer Seocast hard.
Yeah.
So they're just kind of mixing those pellets together, melting them down, casting the models. And the thinner bits definitely have some flex to them. Like, they're definitely very durable models.
Mm-hmm.
But cleaning up mold lines is not good. Like, you can't scrape them the way that you can with polystyrene models, hard plastic models.
Yeah.
And so I went around trying to slice the mold lines off with a sharp hobby knife, and I got some of them, but some of them either I went too deep and I left a divot in the plastic because it's soft enough that it is pretty easy to just like cut halfway into the crossbow or whatever. And so my cleanup job on these models isn't great. They have more mold lines remaining than I like to see on my models, and partially that's me learning how to work with this material, but I think partially everybody's going to see that with this material.
Yeah. I mean, the Seocast hard didn't feel like that. It definitely was much easier to get mold lines off. I haven't had any issues with any of that stuff. I seem to remember, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong on this, but I seem to remember something about different types of Seocast and the level of recyclability, or like how much they could use in a new mix of that. And I wonder if maybe they're using more of the old stuff because it's maybe more of the offcuts from some of the other projects that were more recyclable.
That's possible.
Yeah, that might be why they're going with more of that mixture and not just the straight up hard stuff.
Yeah, I should have pressed them harder on that. I didn't get a clean answer on exactly why they were going with Seocast kind of hard.
Right, because that's a weird choice, right? Because if you've worked with it, it's like, well, I would prefer the other stuff. But I swear, I remember talking to somebody about that and the recyclability of the different types and how much they could use in the machines. So, I don't know. I could be totally off on that, but I swear it's rattling up there somewhere like there.
There's got to be a reason for why they're using a 50-50 mix. Like, you have access to both types, and I think they are more durable than the hard. Like, if you drop them from a height, I think they're more likely to survive the drop than if it was Seocast hard.
Sure.
But in terms of the ability to clean up mold lines, it's it is in between, but it's close enough to Sealcast Soft to make it annoying.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, if you're cutting in and doing it.
Yeah.
I think I've also come to the conclusion recently that there are just some models that's how they're going to be, and to just not even try. Don't even try to like, maybe remove a mold line if you can, like cleanly, but otherwise, I don't know. It's not worth doing. So I guess it's what your expectations are for the models, as like what's your end goal, right? If you're talking about a 13 model skirmish team of 6 and 6 of basically the same models, like, are you really going to be super concerned that they're perfectly clean on the table? You know what I mean? Are you going to play for 45 minutes and put it back in the box for a month or something? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's kind of the point I got to.
Yeah.
Like, my painting standard on these, actually, it's the first time I've used an oil wash in a long time. Like, I just did a pretty good base coat and then just threw a black oil wash all over everything, and got him. We got him. There's my dwarves. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. My dwarves, I think it's of Anvil Keep. I'm trying to remember. It's a very classic dwarven name. Hold on. Yeah.
It sounds classic-y.
Yeah, Anvil Keep. Yeah, it's the... Okay, it's the Gnomes of Knarlwood.
Ooh.
The Gnomes of Knarlwood.
With a K or a G? It's a K, right?
K, yeah. Yeah, dude. And I haven't gotten really to work on the gnomes yet, but I think they might be the winners of the line so far. Like, the faces of the gnomes is really good.
Yeah.
And they've got these stupid little goatees and everything, and they've got like spiked hair and headbands, and yeah.
They got any like pointy gnome hats or anything, or is this mostly spiky hair?
No, it's like a lot of like spiked gray hair.
Right. So like World of Warcraft gnome looking people. Not that they look the same, but that kind of like hair was a big deal, not so much hats.
I'm struggling to describe them. Like, the gnomes is closer to being an independent thing.
Okay.
Like the dwarves of Anvil Keep, they look like
dwarves of Anvil Keep.
This is a podcast. It's an audio format. Everyone listening right now knows what the dwarves of Anvil Keep look like.
I haven't seen it, but I'm pretty sure I know what they look like. Yeah.
The one slightly cool thing about these dwarves is the design of their shields. Mm-hmm. The design of their shields is almost like a puzzle piece. Like, they're in the way that there's a divot on one and an extension on the other, so that they're obviously made to like overlap.
Oh, okay.
Like, you can see that, like, oh yeah, these are meant to like link in together for a dwarven shield wall or whatever.
Yeah,
I get it. Okay. And that's the only notable design feature on the dwarves. There's 6 crossbow dwarves of Anvil Keep, 6 hammerer dwarves of Anvil Keep, and the hammerers have a kind of unique shield design that's meant to, like, the shields link together and they form the dwarven shield wall. But the gnomes, I mean, you'll see design elements from a bunch of different things in the gnomes, but the gnomes are closer to being like, all right, Enviro Games has their their killer app, the Gnomes of Knarlwood. Yeah, real good.
Very nice. Are you gonna paint up the other half of the box then, or you just...
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. So it's 6 crossbows, 6 hammers, and then like the leader of the dwarves.
Yeah.
And then it's the same sort of thing for the gnomes. I think there's 6 with spears, 6 with bows, and then a leader of the gnomes is like a little sorcerer, gnome sorcerer.
Ooh, okay.
But yeah, the Sealcast mold seems to have done a really good job on the heads of the gnomes. Like, there's a lot of character in there. Nice. And so I was kind of trying to rush through the dwarves so that you eat my vegetables, so then I can get into those gnomes.
Yeah. Take a little more time.
Yeah. So, like I said, I did just a basic undercoat on the dwarves, and then I just hit them with a black oil wash. And
that'll do it though.
And normally that's a little too much, letting the oil wash take the wheel, and a little too messy for the way I often like to paint, but they're pretty much done now. And I'm at the phase where I need to pop them off of their temporary bases.
Mm-hmm.
I have some plastic bases that I use over and over again as like temporary bases when I'm painting.
Yeah.
And I did get their MDF bases. I put some texture paste on there. I stuck some rocks into the texture paste. I painted up the bases. And I am right at the phase where I need to pop the dwarves onto their new bases and see how they look. And I don't know. We can do a little segment on sub-assemblies of whether you paint on the base or off the base. You wanna?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Want to jump into that?
Yes. I'm gonna take a step back so that we get caught up, and that way we both have models that make sense for this conversation.
All right, lead us in.
So I kind of alluded to the this Necromunda box that I have. It's 1992 Van Saar gang, like the old metal chunky boys in stealth suits. Were sent in to me, which was pretty cool, just kind of randomly. And I really wanted to just paint them up, so that's what I've been working on mostly. And I went ahead and decided to cut them off of their little standees, you know, and put them on base toppers. So I printed out a bunch of, like, you know, underground metal, cool looking base toppers, which I still think is a really good idea. Base toppers in general, you know, for $3, I think I paid for like 12 different ones that, you know, look mostly similar, a little bit different here and there, and you just print them out and glue them to the top of the base that you already have. So instead of using like the modeling compound or little extra bits and all the things, like, just I've been really into it because they're super quick prints and you just glue them down, and I like that a lot. And I ended up, for these, after I cut off all the standees, I sanded all the feet down to make them flat. I decided, okay, because this is part of this conversation, right, is when do you actually put the model on the base? Because a lot of the times we end up gluing the models to the bases, setting them aside, and that's how you finish your assembly. But when it comes to, like, textured bases or different types of things, you might want to leave them off. Well, in this case, I glued them on, and now I'm regretting that. Like, I've actually finished basically painting all the models, and I'm kind of like, man, I need to, like, pull these off now. Because I want to, like, paint cool stuff on the bases and make them look cool. So I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to pop them all off and do that. But that leads to problems on its own that I think you've been running into.
Yeah, it's a trade-off. So, in general, I think more of my models, I glue the model onto the base, and I paint it all at once. And it's just one of those questions of how much sub-assembly do you want to do?
Yeah.
This is one of the times where I actually did them separately. Got my dwarves on temporary bases, painting them up separately. And the nice thing about that is that makes painting the bases so much faster and easier.
Yeah.
And it's just, slap the texture paste on there, sprinkle some rocks, let it dry, take it down to the airbrush. You don't need to worry about hitting boots and ankles or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's just, you can spray them all up together, you can dry brush them together, hit them all with washes. And so I've got 13 gnome bases, 13 dwarf bases. I just did them all in the same colors, did them all at once. And, you know, each one of those steps only takes a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
To get all the bases done. It's very efficient if you're not working your way around boots and stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Now, being able to just, like, you know, assembly line out bases is a pretty satisfying process. Because especially if you're dry brushing and washing and that kind of thing, man, you can knock out some bases so quick. And they look good just sitting there. They're like little projects all on their own. They're just sitting there. And it's like, oh, I actually painted something and it looks cool. I don't know. I do that a lot, and then I'm kind of like, I don't want to put anything on it now. It looks good.
You know, so the drawback for me is that I like the context of painting both the base and the mini to make sure that they look good together. And in this situation, I happened to prime the dwarves silver. Mm-hmm. Or I actually primed them black, but like what I did with the airbrush was just I got a nice coat of silver. I got my silver base coat on there. And then what that means is that the temporary base that these dwarves are on has just been silver throughout the entire time I'm painting these dwarves. And that offers me zero useful context in terms of how the colors of the base and the miniature are going to play off of each other. Actually, it's probably pretty dang misleading just to have a giant block of silver under your miniature.
If you have a lot of armor on there, then you're thinking, man, there's just so much silver on this model. I got to break that up.
Yeah,
but maybe you don't.
Yeah. Even when you're trying to think past that, like just subconsciously, it completely changes things. Or even just the base rim being a bright silver instead of a black. Like it changes the framing and the context of the miniature. And I don't want to say that makes it harder to paint. Like it's easier to paint because you don't have to worry about getting whatever green trim on your gray rock that you've already painted.
For sure, yeah.
But
I think it does like mentally throw you off though, and maybe you don't even notice it. But I definitely have that problem when, especially metallics, and maybe that's why, because it's so bright. Mm-hmm. Is that, you know, when you paint a model that has mostly armor on it or something, there's a lot of single blocks of color. And usually you want to break those up, right? You put a little gold in between these two silver parts or bronze or whatever. But if your base is silver, you're going to be thinking there's a lot more of this color than I think there should be. And you might end up making decisions that cost you time, you know, that where you didn't necessarily need to spend that time. I think it's definitely relevant and like might even be worth just painting it black before you start.
So that's something I've definitely done, is even when I have a temporary base, I've taken the time to go and change the color of the temporary base. Yeah. And oftentimes it is black, or I think there was a project where I was doing 30 Blood Angel Space Marines, and I was painting them on separate bases, and I did go through and, with a paintbrush, change all 30 of their base colors from the red of the preparation to just a weird green that was going to be more similar to their final base color.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. I've had that actually the same issue with Blood Angels. Because you have a red base all of a sudden. You're like, man, this is just too much. Like, I can't get this to be more contrasty, you know?
Right. So in terms of assembly line logic, it makes a ton of sense to do the bases separately, do the models separately, at the very end, glue one on top of the other.
Yeah.
Like that. It makes a ton of sense. But the trade-off, or one of the trade-offs, is that while you're going through the process of painting them, especially if you're coming up with a paint scheme as you're going, you won't have the knowledge of knowing what those two elements look like together. Mm-hmm. And actually, while I was painting these dwarves, I did a couple of them ahead of the others just to get an idea of what my basic scheme was going to be like.
Yeah.
And actually, a couple of times I snapped them off of their temporary bases to put them on my current version of the bases. Yeah. And I was like, base is too bright. Need to darken this down a little bit. And so I ended up putting like a couple extra dark washes on the base to try to make them in the right direction.
Yeah.
I still don't know what these, like, I'm half an hour away from actually knowing what any of these models are going to look like. I have a pile of bases. I have a pile of models on weird silver temporary bases. Mm-hmm. And I'm so close. I'm going to know soon whether or not I need to throw these in the trash. And
yeah. Oh, no. No good.
Yeah. Throw these away with the rest of my styrofoam in here.
Yeah.
Start a trash can fire for all my unwanted plastics. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think, because I think I go maybe half the time where the model is on the base and I paint the base with the model. So all the colors get mixed in, then I have to go in and, fill it in and try and dry brush around things or add wash without getting it on the model or whatever. And that's fine. But I think the way that I end up getting around this issue is by using something like a pigment powder. Almost every time that I do this, it's like, okay, well, what's the thing that, regardless of how the base is and how the model is, like how is this going to unify, right? So if you use a pigment powder, even if it's just dark brown or something, like that color is now on both of those things, and it pretty much just pulls it together, at least most of the time for me.
Fair. Yep.
So I think that's a good workaround for something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a really good point to do a little blending and unification. The pigment powder, that makes sense. I'm normally more on the side of going for like a color harmony between my model and my bases. Mm-hmm. So I normally want them to be different, but to work well together.
Sure.
And so one of the nice things about doing them separately is that you're not getting brown from the boots on the rocks of the base. You're not getting the color of the rocks onto the brown of the boots. Like that. Yeah. That's nice. But yeah, it's a matter of finding out at the very end what your model actually looks like.
Yeah.
And especially if you're feeling your way through the paint scheme as you go. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, if this is your 3rd regiment of skeleton warriors and you know very well what their bases and their bones are going to look like, then you glue all them bits to pieces of cardboard and have at it. Like you know what to do. Yeah. You don't need me telling you what colors to use. But on models where you don't necessarily know where it's all going to end up, mm-hmm. I don't know, a little extra element of chance there, just putting the final pieces together at the end and finding out what happens.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, even after I painted these Necromunda guys, like I put silver down on their bases because it's supposed to be, metal floors and all this stuff. I'm finding that there just isn't, like, I can't really put pigment powder on these metal floors and make that make sense, I guess. To like
a little bit of rust, I don't know.
Yeah, a little bit of rust probably. And I'm
industrial chemicals, like enemy at the gates, or like a guy has blue chemicals on his shoes. Where's he been? Oh, a giant pile of blue chemicals. That's where he's been.
Did you say enemy at the gates?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I can't remember which character. It was either Ed Harris figures out that somebody's been next to the pile of blue chemicals, or somebody saw that on his boots. Yeah. They're all very clever in that.
This is very, very clever. Very clever. It's a clever movie.
Yeah.
I used to watch that movie all the time.
It's a good movie. It's actually a pretty good inspiration for all of the Imperial Guard faction, and also, I don't know, like just wargaming in general. Build yourself a little Stalingrad. Yeah. Sorry, I got off on my blue chemicals. And...
There you go. I don't know, like where I'm at with these bases right now is, like, I want to put freehand on the base, and I want to do the old box, the old Necromunda boxes all have the sweet caution stripe patterns, the black and yellow. And like, there are sections on these that were obviously sculpted to have that on there. And it's like, I don't want to, I'm just going to pop them off and do all that and go back.
That's much easier separately. Yeah. Yes, that is much easier.
Exactly. So, yeah, I'm not going to try and do that while they're on here. I don't want to take an extra like hour per model to paint a couple of stripes,
Yeah, careful not to hit the ankles.
Yeah, exactly.
Get it straight. Don't hit the ankles.
Models, right. So the way that I'm painting them, essentially I'm just painting like striking scorpions. They're like brighter than what's on the box. They're still a green and the same kind of colors that they generally have, but I went super bright with them. And
I'm looking at the sculpts for the Van Saar right now. I brought that up. So these are the old metal Necromunda models, Van Saar.
Yeah.
Man, to me, they look like futuristic Katachan warriors. They're like beefy combat dudes, except they have tons of futuristic bits all over them, and their guns look a little bit better.
They do look a little bit better. Although there is one dude that has like, there's a couple of them. They have like these weird assault rifles, and they're just like really thick, really thick. Like nobody's hand is gonna fit that.
Yeah, I'd rather have that than a bent rifle, though.
That's a good point. Some of these are bent though. Just
Best of both worlds.
Bit. This is 1992 we're talking about. This is very early days. Like, mostly metal. In fact, I think almost all metal, all the time. All hand sculpted green stuff. Like, you can tell too. Some of the heads are a little bit kind of squishy. Like, especially the ones that are like looking down the sights of the overly large guns. They kind of, it feels like they took the sculpt and they're just like, no, you gotta bend its head over. They just squished it into the side of the rifle. It's like, yeah, now look at him. He's looking down the scope. See, it's like, why is his head slimmer and taller now? It has that kind of like, I'm gonna call it charm. We're gonna call it that.
I believe that explanation.
Yeah.
I believe the explanation of there's a head that maybe it was intended to be looking down the barrel, and then they look at the mini when it's finished and it doesn't quite line up.
Right.
And you're like, we need to get that eyeball a couple millimeters more over the sight, and we'll just squeeze that in there.
Action in there, yeah. It definitely feels like that in a lot of ways, like these older models like that. And like normally, I really like the old metal models. I think some lines of models just are better than others. I think these are probably the least refined, I want to say. Like, there's some really cool lines in a lot of this. Like the suits they have on are really cool. Little pieces of armor stand out nicely, like straps and that kind of thing. They have tons of like really tiny tubes on them, which is kind of nuts. Like, you just don't see that as much in the way that these are done. And yeah, their heads are all a little bit funky. Like somebody who's definitely using some fingers to just mash them around. They're definitely the models where you can paint the eyeballs in, but they're never going to be quite right. So I don't know, I'm wanting to make the bases a little better to maybe distract from that a little bit.
There you go.
Yeah.
So on the topic of eyeballs, I think there are times where you say these eyes aren't getting painted. Mm-hmm. These are just getting the dark wash on the face. Yeah. And you get the idea.
Yeah.
Because there is the very good point that if you look at a person from a distance, their eyes just kind of look like dark orbits.
Yeah.
Like the idea that you're actually able to see the glint in somebody's eye when relative to you they're an inch tall is not actually realistic. That's not real. So there are times where you can just write off the eyeballs. We're getting a dark wash in the orbits of the eyes on the face, and that's what I did to my dwarves. I think my dwarven leader, I might paint his eyes, but for my 12 other dwarves of Anvil Keep, they're just getting a black wash over their skin.
You're like, black oil wash it is. Where it is, what we're doing.
Yeah, done.
Actually, that was occasionally like a black oil wash over the skin. Like, for some reason, man, it just like black lines just right. And it's like, oh, I didn't even have to do anything. That's so scary.
It turned out pretty well in this situation. Yeah. Like I said, the chainmail itself was really good on its own, and took the wash obviously very, very well.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of the models took the wash okay too. So wonderful. Yeah,
it's good. I also use black oil wash on these models. I'm pretty happy about that because I like black oil washes. It preserves all my nice colors.
Pretty much. I did use one relatively light Caucasian flesh tone on a couple of the dwarves, and it's just like, yep, black wash right on over that.
Yep.
And Yeah, close enough.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Like, I have footage of me jamming black oil washing a couple of these dudes' faces, so yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah. Now, I actually ended up using flesh wash for most of these guys.
Okay.
And it was like, I've really come to the point where almost all the models I paint now, I don't use flesh washes. I don't like the way that it looks. I'd much rather paint those details in. I mean, I certainly could have on these, but definitely a few of them, like I said, did that kind of thumb to the head look. Just made it funky, and so I just like kind of gave it a nice, like, I used some of the gloss flesh wash, like a little bit mixed in with the regular, so that lower surface tension definitely helped. And so it's like they've got it in their eye sockets, they've got it around the nose and the mouth, and like it looks pretty good. So
okay,
yeah, it actually worked out decently.
Yeah,
and they're just funky looking models, so kind of whatever.
we did an episode a couple weeks back on when is a mini not worth your time.
Yeah.
And there are definitely minis where it's like, it's not worth as many hours
Right.
as this other mini that I have is.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm still seeing too many mold lines on this, or, you know, if you look closely, the face is squished, and it would be very good to make this not look stupid. So
Yeah.
let's make it look stupid as quickly as possible and call
It's
it a day.
kind of where I'm at too. It's like I left the faces for last, and like I like the way that I painted these models, but at the same time, where I want them to look good, right? These were sent in.
Yeah.
To me. Somebody gave me these.
Yeah.
I still want them to be at least a level where I can paint. I think there are 9 of them, in a couple of days. And then put them with the rest of the models that are in the box, right? And I didn't spend a massive amount of hours painting the rest of those models, except for the Goliaths, like the big dudes with the mohawks.
Yeah.
Like, I spent some time on a couple of those. They look pretty rad, just because they're ridiculous.
They are ridiculous.
Yeah.
I have one of the old plastic Goliaths, and big old muscles, mohawks, like a lot of stuff you can do with that.
Yeah. Well, and they were plastic too.
Yep.
Yeah. I think.
Yep.
I mean, they have metal ones too, but the ones I have are plastic.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, sometimes you look at a sculpt though, and you're like, okay, you're not holding up your half of the bargain here. Like if you're
exactly.
Yeah, if you're gonna half-ass this, maybe so will I. Yeah.
It always does feel like that too. Like it's weird, like having a lot of metal models, and especially more recently buying even more. Like there is something about metal models that just says it's okay. You don't have to try that hard. Like we know what this is.
Yeah.
Get those colors down. Don't paint my eyes. It's fine.
The artist only had a couple hours before the green stuff hardened.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't spend any more than that on actually painting the model. It'll all be good. Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, I think there's a handful of metal models I've spent some good amount of time on, but for the most part, it's like I'm not going in with a plan. Like these big beefy pieces of metal, just that's a gun. I'm gonna paint gun colored. That's what it is. That's fine with me. And the thing is, like they inherently have their own look to them, right? They just look the way they do, and it almost doesn't matter the way that you paint them. They just are gonna look like that. So I mean, even on the box for most of these models, like they look derpy. Like here's like heavy metal painters, and it's like those eyes are not good. Like nobody tried this. I'm not going to do better than that, and that is not good.
Well, that was the early days of heavy metal, where they had different standards, I think.
That's fair. That is very fair. Even to that point, those eyes are not good on the box. Maybe somebody can do a better job, but it's not me.
Fair. Yeah. Right. They didn't have the modern tools we had. They were trying to do everything with chestnut ink back then. Like
That's true.
had what they had.
I mean, bring back that chestnut ink, though.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for real.
I wouldn't mind that.
No.
Yeah, I'm looking for a good excuse to bust out some old paints from that era. I've got a handful of them.
Cool.
I haven't used them. They're just sitting there waiting. Still good too. So.
Well, there's your YouTube challenge video.
There you go.
eBay Miniature Rescues Paint Edition.
Yeah.
Yeah. Old model and old paint. Old model, older paint. You workshop it.
Yeah, I know what you mean though. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the damn titles. So what's the conclusion then? Like, I guess it's not like there's a right answer.
What was the question?
Exactly. That's how far we've come. No, it's like sub-assemblies for your base and your minis. Like, what do you prefer, or does it even matter?
Yeah, and I mean, there's this whole other layer of the slot bases. Like slot bases for metal models. Ordinarily, I definitely would glue those to the base first, and work around the ankle issue. You have elected to, because you're using the 3D print space toppers, you've decided to cut the slot off of your slot of models.
I usually do, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, there are some situations where that it should be glued onto the base first. There's also an issue. This may just be a personal pet peeve of mine. If you are going to glue your model onto the base, and then you're going to add texture paste or something like that, texture paste or sand or something to the base, it's a pet peeve. It kind of annoys me. The idea that the boots are now sitting under, 3 inches into the dirt.
Yeah.
Or that your dwarf of Anvil Keep is so heavy that his boots have just sunk 4 inches into the earth.
Yeah.
Every time he takes a step. And, models are sculpted so that the feet don't get extra height. You're not on lifts for the purpose of taking up some of the texture room. So there have been a few times when I've put spacers under the boots.
Okay.
And little scrap bits of plastic. I think I actually have some old 3D printing supports that I use for that purpose, like the discs that get stuck to the printing plate. But yeah, that's something I've done before. Is if I am gluing down the model to the base before adding texture paste or sand or whatever.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have added a spacer underneath the boots. Give them that a little extra bit of height, extra confidence.
Put the mud under
then
it.
you put the texture paste on.
I mean, that's not a bad idea. That actually reminds me of a video that Luke did, Keep Gaming, where it the whole thing was, you're doing your slot bases wrong, right? You've been doing it wrong the whole time. And it's usually we put the thing in and it kind of jumbles around. You just fill it with glue and whatever. And then you have the same issue where the boots are in the mud or the dirt or whatever.
Right.
Well, he kind of bent the middle a little bit and had it slide in so it kind of stuck. And then it was just a little bit.
Give him just a little bit of height?
Just a little bit of height that he could slide that mud underneath.
Yep.
And that totally made sense to me. It was great.
For sure.
Yeah, so no spacers, no nothing. Obviously, it's working with older models and slotters and stuff, so we don't have the same advantages anymore of that.
Yep. So there's also this issue of mechanical durability.
Yeah.
So a slot base model glued into a slot base, very solid. That's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Now, if you cut your model off of the slot base and are trying to put it onto a base later on with super glue, that is less solid. Yes. You, of course, have the option of getting out your drill and doing some pinning, and that helps a lot. Okay, speaking of that, one person who always does that method, of building a cool base
There you go.
and then pinning the model to the base. You do it, Casey. You do it.
No, this is such a good segue. I'm waiting for it. I want to hear you say it.
Okay, you know who did this? I don't know if anybody remembers the classic. I don't want to call them old. I've been told
Videos are like
if you're gonna
15 years old, right? Something like it's dude's been around.
Yeah. Okay. So we're talking about the YouTube channel Buy Painted.
Yeah.
It's like this European man who I guess used to do some commission painting.
Yeah.
And film it, and a lot of really good YouTube tutorials, and honestly, some of the earliest airbrush heavy tutorials that I ever saw.
Airbrush heavy.
Like does everything with the airbrush. Like instead of like dry brushing some texture on the base, we'll hold the base at like an 80-degree angle.
Yeah.
And squirt, kind of a little bit from the side to
the
get
dude
some.
knows his angles.
Yeah.
100%.
Oh, for sure.
Like,
yeah.
Some awesome stuff. Yeah.
Anyway, he would very often do the bases separately, and texture paste on the base, put some different colors on it, and then again, instead of dry brush highlighting, hold the base at an extreme angle away from the airbrush and just do a quick squirt, almost side onto the base to get like
pick up that texture.
Yeah, just get the northern face of some of the sand grits highlighted basically, and would look better than a dry brush. Essentially, would look really good. Look really good. But anyway, he would paint his bases separately, and he would pin the bottom of each feet, and he'd decide where he wanted it on the base. And a lot of times he was using cork bases, like built up a couple layers of that cork board. And then just, drill some holes into the base and put the model exactly where he wanted. 2 nice pins through the cork down into the plastic at the base. Beautiful work, classic YouTuber, but he's back. That's the lead in here. Is Casey told me this half an hour ago. Buy Painted is back. He is under the name Wargaming Zone, aka Buy Painted.
That's like the whole channel name too. Wargaming Zone, aka Buy Painted.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful. And there are videos posted in the last couple of days, and
there's a bunch. He's already posted quite a few. Yeah. Some big projects.
You were telling me that it's classic Buy Painted.
It is like not different at all. Like
took a 8-year vacation, came back, hasn't lost a step.
I mean, for all I know, I'm gonna have to go back and look at some of the old videos, but it might be the same phone that he's using to record. I mean, he's just like, hey, this is my filming phone. Like, it's fine. It's all good. I don't know. But the music is the same. I like to think
he got that 4S. Yeah,
exactly. And that's probably what it was like back then. Man, it's crazy. Like, I used to watch that dude's videos all the time, and even it's funny because like he uses the same song in every video, and it's on a loop, and like it does get old, but the videos are usually pretty quick, and he's talking and then he's showing stuff, and it's fine. But that was part of the inspiration I had for being like, I don't need tons of music for my videos, and I just had one song on a loop for like the first 20 videos on my channel.
Yeah, so did Warhammer Masterclass.
Yeah, it's not good. Oh man, that just gave me another thought though. I'll get to that in a sec. But yeah, it's great because it's the same angle, same voice, same music, everything. It's exactly what it should be and what it needs to be, and like the painting is really good. I was pretty disappointed when he just kind of up and disappeared, but it was also part of the reason I even wanted to be on YouTube to begin with. Because like I really like this, and he's just painting models and having a good time. Like he's clearly was doing like commissions. That was a big part of the channel, but it's called Buy Painted after all. But yeah, it was a big deal. I'm super glad that they're back, and I want to say it might be multiple people at this point. It's him painting, but I think it's like a studio somewhere that maybe opened up. I'm not 100% sure. But either way, you should definitely check that out.
Welcome back, legend. Welcome back.
Yeah. Speaking of another legend, who just started their own YouTube channel, Peachy. Peachy started his very own YouTube channel called Peachy Tips.
Peachy Tips.
Yeah. Got a nice little paint pot kettle logo. And he's getting going in March. He's got like a preview video right now. He's already almost, I think, at least by the time that we're talking about this, is almost 16,000 subscribers. I mean, he just posted that video.
That's so more than what we have on the YouTube. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's killing us already.
Yeah. Paint Bravely cannot compete with Peachy Tips.
No,
not at all.
No. But, especially when Peachy Tips has 1 40-second video. Yeah. We're done for.
Yeah, he was an employee at Games Workshop, then he was an employee at the painting phase, and now he's striking out on his own. Peachy Tips. Yeah. Possibly peachytips.com. Don't quote me on that.
I mean, I can't imagine.
I'm going to hope.
You know what? We should check
.co.uk.
Yeah, there you go. Let's see if that domain is taken and just quickly buy it up. $7.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this, make sure to buy. I can't even. No. We need to edit this out, because what if somebody doesn't?
Nobody would do that.
Oh no! What if we're the reason why Peachy can't get the URL?
No, because he'll take the.
Dude, not cool.
Peachytips.com.
Peachy, or he has to be peachytips.nz or something. Like, yeah.
Okay. So peachytips.co.uk. Oh, that's interesting.
It's available?
Nope. It is not available. And I don't know what it is, but it's some kind of...
Is there a main man, Chris Peach?
Nope, it's a football and soccer webpage with the subtitle "Just the Tip, because anything more is cheating."
Yep. Good job naming your channel, Peachy. Good job.
That's peachytips.co.uk. And peachytips.com is not taken. I'm gonna have to email him and just be like, dude, you need to like.
Okay, yeah, we're recording this a couple days out from posting it, so
look,
I'll
going to him today. So like, if he doesn't get on it by then,
yeah. If this episode is out on Monday and Peachy hasn't claimed peachytips.com, well. And it's really a roll of the dice whether a white hat or a black hat is going to take it for him. Take it for him or take it from him, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like we might have just shot Peachy in the foot and also the knee and also his other knee.
No.
And slapped him around a bit.
No.
And we apologize.
Peachytips.biz. You'll be fine.
As is tradition, we will... We'll include an apology to Peachy in almost every one of our videos. And
It's been a while.
We're just going to have a list of the people we need to apologize to, like our viewers, our listeners, Peachy of peachytips.nz.
Yeah, well, the .co.uk, like, that's clearly taken.
Yeah, he's gonna have a problem with some football hooligans, is what that sounds like. That's gonna be a whole other saga.
Yeah, well, we'll have to keep an eye on it. It'll just be another ongoing story on Paint Bravely the podcast.
Yeah, man. Well, that's good. So, I'll say one more thing on bases. I did my texture bases up separately. I'm a little curious whether or not my boots are all going to find great, nice, solid places to stick on there. I'll have to play around and, figure out my most solid footing, because it's not a flat surface anymore. We got texture paste and rocks on there.
You could pin them.
I got some rocks on there. I don't know. Yeah, I could pin them.
I don't know.
Anyway,
that's pinning models very much. If it's a big enough model, I will pin it. And if it's at a weird angle or if it's on something, yes, that is great. But the way that just bringing it back to good old buy painted, right? Dude puts full on 2-inch paper clips on the bottom of every model, and puts them on cork, and then paints the bases separately
That's
that.
Right.
And then
That's right.
Takes those paper clips and slides them all the way through, and then bends them over underneath the base, which I've tried several times, and I don't know if I need smaller needle nose pliers or something, but it never quite works the same way. I just end up
He's got a
cutting
system.
him off. He does, and it
He
works.
knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the dude knows what's up.
Heck yeah. And I don't know if I have anything more to say about bases or European painting channels or
That's really all I have to say about
soccer hooligans.
The weird thing is it's a co.uk web address, and the first picture that comes up is in American football.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, but there's also then a football underneath that football. I don't know. I think it's some stupid, like probably scammy something or other, non-existent, just to hold the name for no reason site. But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we were giving him other names other than Peachy Tips, but
yeah.
I don't know. It is a good name. Peachy Tips is a
I
good
think
name. Maybe
sure.
that's why your soccer hooligans. Your gridiron football hooligans took it.
It's literally both. I don't know.
Or yeah.
That's what I don't get.
That's a lot to think about.
It is. But we do wish him the best of luck because that was great. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again for joining us on another episode of Paint Bravely. If you enjoyed this podcast, please help us out by leaving us a review on iTunes, subscribing to the YouTube channel, and sharing this message with all your friends. And as always, we appreciate each and every one of you for listening. We will.
Talk to you next time.